So the big question is, should the Bruins pay Morgan Geekie a lot of money? He scored 30 goals, and it's a big milestone for Geekie. This is the most goals he's ever scored in a season. He's looked really good with Pastrnak and Zaka. I mean, there's really not much else you can ask more from a guy like Morgan Geekie. He's gone out there and proven, even after a slow start to begin the season, he can be extremely productive with one of the best players in the NHL. So does he benefit playing with David Pastrnak? Absolutely. But Morgan Geekie himself has played up to a very strong level, and I think could be a nice complementary piece for the Bruins. But key word there being complementary. And I know a lot of Bruins fans want to back up that Brinks truck, make sure they lock him up for long term. But I would also caution, Morgan Geekie, shooting percentage this season is 20%. Just to kind of put that in comparison, last two seasons before this, it was 13 and 11%. So when it comes to Morgan Geekie, he is scoring at a 2% higher clip rate, and I don't think that's sustainable. I think Geekie ultimately is a 20, 25 plus goal scorer at the NHL. He has shown the ability to score 30, and while sure, maybe playing with Pastrnak allows him to score at such a high clip, it would be unrealistic to expect him to continue to score at that high of percentage. It's just, that would put him at like Hall of Fame level type production. What I think we might have going on here is essentially a watered down version of Zach Hyman. Zach Hyman for the Edmonton Oilers, he put up a tremendous amount of goals one season, then kind of came back down to earth after that. And a lot of it was because they were tap-ins. And I'm not saying every single goal that Geekie has scored is a tap-in, but some of those Pastrnak feeds were absolutely filthy and made life a lot easier for a player like Geekie. But there is still value with a guy like Morgan. I think very good two-way player, can bury the biscuit, can also help set up Pastrnak. And I just think having a player that can continue to build chemistry with a guy like Pastrnak over multiple years would be a good thing. I see some Bruins fans like, we got to get him for like 6-7 mil. My sweet spot for a guy like Geekie, because he's going to be an RFA this year, somewhere around the market, around maybe $5 million with multiple years, obviously, maybe even 3 years. I'd be fine with the short bridge deal to see, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Morgan Geekie becomes a consistent 30-goal scorer. But until he proves that and showcases that this high shooting percentage is not just a single outlier, which, I mean, historically indicates it to be an outlier, I wouldn't pay him anything north of that. I just think when you start putting too much money into a particular player, especially one that's more of a complementary piece, it makes roster construction far more difficult. And we saw that kind of hurt the Bruins later during their playoff window. I mean, sure, they brought in a lot of talent, but due to having certain players at specific cap hits, it made it more challenging to bring in more expensive players so they could kind of finally win a Stanley Cup, which they ultimately didn't do. I think Morgan Geekie, great story. I love him. I'm hoping the Bruins figure out a deal where it makes sense for both parties. But do I think this guy is a perennial 30-goal scorer? No. I just don't think the percentages lead that to be true. I think something of a Zach Hyman going here. But I will also say this. If he's just a 20 to 25 goal scorer through his tenure here in Boston, that is terrific secondary scoring that the Bruins need. So in no way, shape, or form am I saying, oh, let's get rid of Morgan Geekie. No, you need players like that. But you also need to bring in more talent so you can have more top six wingers, more top six talent overall. Love Geekie. Love the production. 30-goal season. I'm hoping he can get a few more just for him. I mean, I think that's just a cool milestone to hit. I think it's important to make sure that Pastrnak has a running mate that he's comfortable with, and it seems like that's the guy there in Geekie. And while we saw a little bit of Lindholm in there, Zaka and Pastrnak and Geekie, if that's going to be a top two line on this team going forward, I think that's great. That just showcases that you really need to just figure out the minor moves in the offseason and maybe get another winger in here and bring out the best version of the Bruins. And who knows? I know they're one of the worst teams in the NHL this season, but I don't think they'd be that far off with a couple nice additions to being right back in the thick of it next season. I'd like to know your thoughts down below in the comments section. What would you think about Geekie's signing? Would you want it to be above 5 million, 5.5 million? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. I'll see you in the next one.